My friends, earlier today, actor Chris Pratt and his fellow cast members of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies issued a statement in support of the fired director James Gunn. Gunn was fired by Disney after right-wingers on Twitter surfaced some of his old tweets joking about pedophilia. He then apologized for the old tweets. Again, he'd apologized back in 2012. So Chris Pratt tweeted this, quote, "Although I don't support James Gunn's inappropriate jokes from years ago, he is a good man. I personally love to see him reinstated as director of Volume 3. Unquote. The statement is quite good. The real point of the statement is the second to last paragraph. Social media mobbing has become a sport for many. Taking scalps is the object of the sport. I think Gunn's old tweets are egregiously awful, unfunny, stupid, offensive, and all the rest. But they are old tweets Disney knew about when they hired him. They're jokes. As of yet, nobody has surfaced any serious allegations that Gunn is actually a pedophile, despite the online community's eagerness to label him one." Unquote. Folks, this comes from the Daily Wire. And here's why I wanted to open the show with it. By the way, I'm Howard Riell, and the show you're listening to is Real Truth. Online mobbing, social media mobbing, it is a frenzy of non-thought. It is rage directed at, well, whoever you happen to have. We'll direct rage at them. Do I think people should joke about pedophilia? Of course not. But people make inappropriate jokes. It comes with blood and epithelial tissue. Human beings make inappropriate jokes to try and destroy a guy's career because back many years ago he made an inappropriate joke. That's not the American way. It's not even the decent way. And I applaud Chris Pratt and his fellow Guardians of the Galaxy for going public with what, among a lot of people in this country, must be a very unwelcome message. The message is grow up. Put things in perspective. Have a sense of humor. Be tolerant. Cut people some slack. We are in such tense times when the slightest word, the slightest intonation, the raise of an eyebrow will set a mob off. We got to ratchet it back. We got to chill out. It was a joke, and it shouldn't be used to destroy a man. Now, we are going to be hearing today some news about other mob thought attacks, other social mobbing, also intended to destroy not just individuals, but the United States of America. It's Real Truth on Monday. We'll be right back.
Baby and other folks who against it. Who do not understand that there are thousands of serious physical complications every year. Anxiety disorder, violent epidemiology reported that more than 60 breast cancer risk by 9%. Every hope is going to be the life, too. The message is brought to you by KLR Associates and Bolton. Job well done. Call KLR Associates and Bolton. 303-921-3310. KLR Mid-Housing Brand of Special Protective Service to Bolton and North Colorado area. Most people think they can't afford to invest in gold and silver. But at the Patriot Trading Group, we believe that everyone should have the opportunity to own hard assets. That's why we created our Preferred Metals program. You can get started for as little as $100 a month. Go to allamericangold.com and click on our Preferred Metals icon to learn how you can get started today. Or call us at 800-951-0592. The Patriot Trading Group, allamericangold.com.
My friends, if someone is stupid these days, I mean really hardcore stupid, then they've got a bright future in the Democrat Party, which seems to be wrapping its arms lovingly around any nitwit they can find. Case in point, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, every time she opens her mouth, she shows that she hasn't got a brain that works. Here she is on TV talking about her plan for taxes. She'll be followed by Dan Bongino on Fox News explaining exactly why, A, she's a rectum, and B, she's being called the future of the Democrat Party. My friends, listen. Here's how politics works today, at least on the Democrat side. You don't need to have facts. You don't need to have logic. You don't need to know what you're talking about. If you are a person of color, and especially if you have a vagina, then you're right, no matter what you say.
Dan, let me just tell you.
My friends, David Letterman, years ago on the David Letterman show, he said that his motto in college was stupider, longer. That was David Letterman's college motto, stupider, longer. It seems to have been adopted by the Democratic Party.
Well, you hear free education, free healthcare.
My friends, if we're going to go through the big ticket items, free education, free healthcare, well, let's start small. First, I want free coffee at Starbucks. That's my right, isn't it?
Pay for it. So Kevin Phillips, who is on our show all the time, and he goes out and he gets just an idea of how people are thinking in this country. He went to college campuses and asked them about these policies.
He went to the Bronx.
He went to the Bronx, actually, where she was from and where she campaigned. And here's what they said about how we're going to pay for this.
Her platform includes free healthcare, college tuition, the minimum living wage, housing as a human right. Are those things that you think the government should be providing for people?
Absolutely.
Yes, it is.
100%.
I feel like everyone should have like free education and healthcare.
How are we going to pay for those?
Oh God. I mean,
Us.
I guess.
Who, in your mind, should pay for all of the free things?
All the free things? Well, some of it should come from taxes, but the government should pay for it.
But the government is funded by taxes.
Yeah.
There you have it, Dan.
So here's your typical liberal. You can get the money from taxes or from the government. Not a clue, not a thought in the head, no knowledge whatsoever. Let's all have free ice cream, free everything, and we'll just raise taxes. And that'll pay for everything. It's like you're dealing with small children.
But that last answer happened.
My friends, I hate to shock you. There is no money ferry. Hate to shock you. Socialism is a disaster. Hate to shock you. The bad guy in America? It's the liberal voter who doesn't know or care about any of these things. All he knows is he wants. We'll be back.
The Republican I'm very pleased.
Period 1992. Our system reliant on funds to affect you self-reliant for your property. Solar energy techniques cater to any situation. First comes the proper independence of the backup power position. Our expertise focuses on technical power. So we have extensive experience with use of interactive systems. The bigger capability on emergency levy all the way to commercial power. Great Bank offers a full circuit company. We service everything we sell. We provide and design turnkey packages, custom design system, and parts for goods or sales. With more than 20 years of professional experience at your disposal, let us know what your proper concern or goals are. Reach us by phone or the internet. 303-239-9963. That's 303-239-9963. Or go to ChrisBankSolar.com.
All right, guys, welcome back. Ann Coulter was recently interviewed on Breitbart News Daily. As always, what she has to say is extremely important and even more intelligent. Here we go.
I'm very pleased now to be joined by not only an author that I recommend to everyone, best-selling, I think, 12 times over, brilliant, funny, a great provocateur as well, and also one of my one or two friends in this movement, in this industry, Ann Coulter. Ann, how are you today?
Fantastic. How are you? One of my friends, too, in the movement.
but you have loads and loads of friends. I joke my only friends are you and Charlie Hurt. Those are my only two friends. So that's the ongoing joke. I think I have thousands of friends in the audience, maybe even millions. They don't give us all the numbers here at SiriusXM, but it is always something that's enjoyable to talk to you. And there's one thing that I like about speaking with you, which is that you and I agree on 90% of stuff, but if we ever did disagree, it would be fun to talk through why. I'm sure you'd get mad eventually, but we are moving to a point now where if we don't have entire universal agreement, then we now think less of the person on the other side of the conversation, and we're going
You're totally right. I could not agree more, and it's driving me crazy in this era of Trump. It used to be one of my favorite things to do, to go out with liberals, or conservatives of a slightly different stripe. And, you know, it's fun to argue at dinner parties. You can't do that anymore. I mean, but you and I may be the only two people who can argue. We ought to find what we disagree about so we can finally have a good argument again.
We can have a debate. We're going to have to pick something that will be probably pretty obscure, because I do look to you for a lot of guidance, and I know that you're a big user of Breitbart, which we're always very grateful for. But this is, and it continues in the Trump White House also, by the way, because I know that I get lots of negative feedback from inside the White House. Like, I mean, we're 90% with the president, 95%, and like, it's even there, apparently, they need some sort of universal agreement, which is, it's just nuts. And it's a shame, because as it's so entertaining, it's so fun, and I thought disagreeing was a quintessential American, really a Western value. I thought it was the Far East, it was Europe, Eastern Europe in particular, Russia, China, where you're not allowed to disagree. North Korea, where you're not allowed to disagree.
Right.
South America, where you're not allowed to disagree. Central America. I thought America, this was the land of freedom of speech, and we're not there. And the big headlines this week,
just being part of our history and tradition. I forget which network it was. Probably MSNBC, since my remote is spot welded to MSNBC all day. But they have the audacity to make fun of President Trump for my favorite story earlier this week. Was that Trump found Melania watching CNN on Air Force One and blew up. I so love that about the president. Anyway, they all start sneering. Yes, it was MSNBC and the New York Times, I guess, had reported that story. They're all sneering at Trump for, can't listen to opposing points of view. Excuse me, MSNBC and New York Times, have you read your own newspaper? Have you watched your own network? And so, you know, watching television in the era of Trump, they get wilder and wilder in their conspiracy theories because they don't allow, I mean, any normal, in my view, any normal person could be on these panels and could pull the thread that sort of would collapse the entire argument. There are things to, there are arguments they can make, but they don't make them, and they get wilder and wilder because there's no one there to disagree with them.
Yeah, you've already given me a ton that I want to follow up on, particularly MSNBC, because I know you, like me, find them to be the most entertaining of the networks. But I am starting to get a little annoyed, because I used to think they were higher integrity than CNN, but the meltdowns there, the enabling of clowns like John Brennan over and over again, I am starting to get a little annoyed. Is it just me, or am I onto something?
Oh, I never thought they were reasonable, or that I would get the truth from watching them. It's always been entertainment. There are some smart people on MSNBC.
Yes.
It's just that they're zealous, and their zealotry gets in the way. And also their absolute abject refusal to listen to any opposing point of view. I ran into somebody who does the programming. I will not reveal who it is, so I'll say for one of those two networks, CNN or MSNBC. And it it was at a New York party, and I said to him, there were like 100, 200 people there. I said, now, I am almost surely the only person in this room who voted for Trump, but I have to tell you, there are a lot of us out there, barely enough to make him president. And I'm thinking it would be great if your network ever put one on.
Right. Yeah, and this is where I find CNN, which has become a national joke, even when they broke the latest Michael Cohen non-story, that they still finish in third place in cable news that night on Chris Cuomo's primetime show. The nepotism there is just unbelievable, that he would get a primetime show and then no one's tuning in anyway, even when he's got the biggest scoop on the planet. It's hilarious and fun in many ways. But also, if you think about where CNN is, their idea of a Republican pundit is Rick Wilson. I won't get into the details of some of the horrible things he said, but guys who make their living attacking the president and getting establishment media accolades. Jeff Zucker and the folks at CNN put those people on as representatives of the Republican Party at this point in time. And it's like, how dumb do they think we are? It's such a lie. It's so disingenuous. And this is why I do think MSNBC is better, because there is a more authenticity to their radical leftism. And CNN's equally radically left. They're just lying about it every second.
The distinction I would draw, I think their politics, you may have a much finer barometer for these things than I do. I think their politics are about the same.
Yeah.
CNN's specialty is they will prove that they're the intellectual network by, number one, using really physically unattractive people as their hosts, and having their hosts wear glasses, and number three, being boring. At least MSNBC, it's funny, it's exciting, the politics are the same, but the zealotry is way more exciting. And by the way, in case this is not clear in what I'm saying, the idea, the very idea of freedom of speech isn't just, screw you, Europe, we have a freedom you don't have. No, the idea, there is a utilitarian purpose to free speech, and that is you get to the truth by having a competition of ideas the same way you have a competition of, shoe stores and restaurants, and let the best one win. Well, we want a competition in ideas. And it is absolutely not true that I have not changed my mind from, I've constantly refined positions by arguing, generally with people I share many assumptions with. That makes it easier. And, every argument doesn't have to begin with, and then the earth cooled. So, we have I know we share some of the same values and principles, and we'll disagree about things. And I've changed my mind. I've changed my mind arguing at some of the better colleges with college kids asking questions in question and answer. Sometimes they're very clever, and I like the back and forth. It's not only fun, but it's actually educational and productive. That is not permitted in today's media. It is 100% who can say the craziest stuff about Trump, and on the other side, who can defend even the crazy things Trump does.
Sure, and I want to get to that, and that's the centerpiece of where we are, because my big fixation this week on radio has been the blue wave and whether or not it's coming, and I've concluded that most of my audience, and I was incorrect on this, I thought most people in the audience
want the truth. No, they don't.
Yeah.
Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, well, I was going to say I thought most of them thought the blue wave was fake news, and then I was saying, well, there have been 43 or so House seats that have flipped to the Democrats, and I'm trying to figure out, what is it? I understand the hysterical nature of the left makes you think they're going to lose, but the enthusiasm's there, and the numbers, they seem to be flipping seats. And I don't get the approach that some of my colleagues in talk radio are taking, just to poo-poo the concept of a blue wave. But I want to get your thoughts on it.
My friends, I poo-poo the concept of a blue wave. Don't forget, when Trump was running for president, poll after poll after poll after poll said he didn't have a chance. How could the polls be that wrong? Well, A, polls can be wrong. B, the people putting out the polls can have a political agenda, and so they can lie. I remember talking on this show about one poll in particular that said Trump didn't have a chance, but what they didn't tell you was that the folks they were talking to were all Democrats. So of course they're going to say Trump didn't have a chance. So take the polls with a grain of thought, a grain of sand. Wait a minute. Take the polls with a grain of salt. I believe the polls lie very often. I do not see anything even approaching a blue wave. As a matter of fact, I see something resembling a red wave coming.
No, they are. Maybe you think it's real. Maybe you think it's fake.
I could totally explain. Oh my gosh, I don't go on TV and radio right now. I'm fine. I may get in trouble if you don't agree with me. You can always count on me saying what I think is true, and this is the problem for me basically every election where we go on TV, especially non-TV, and say, well, who's going to win? And the people who are supposed to be doing it, not giving our opinion of who's going to win. No, this is the cheerleading part of public commentary. And for the right to hear, I mean, I don't think I'm talking news for that. So every night I'm sitting home alone, not doing TV, watching Big Word on Fox News. What's going to be happening? In the past of the years, it's going to be here, it's going to be a real economy. So I mean, maybe I just didn't even know that. We see it. Apparently, there is some business phenomenon, not that I think it was I would say, I have a completely different mentality. If my side is losing, that would make me angry. And I'd say, no, I've got to get out of the group. But apparently, if you learn from the paper, they were just something big. There's a way, there's an idiot, in that case, I'm going to use this way to have a happy little election. It's hard to like moving and I'm sure the listeners who are mentioning such a person who just don't care that much about politics and elections. And it's really good at something bigger. So if the person is I mean, obviously it didn't affect Donald Trump's election. Everybody thought he was going to win.
So what Ann Coulter is describing is the mob, the liberal mob. Doesn't matter whether the issue is right or wrong or the candidate is good or bad. We want to be part of the mob, so let's go! That's mob think. It's the end of intelligent think. And if we're not careful, it could be the end of this country.
But in general, people, the reason people are lying and Republicans will say, no, there's not going to be blue wave, and liberals will say, yes, there's going to be blue wave. Now, as for what the truth is now, and I don't think you would insist on having nothing really going on better than the truth. There are two things I've mentioned. One is it doesn't matter how these Republicans vote apart. I mean, we're losing, I can vote, I can vote. We're losing like 7.5 seats really out of that. Here's his people have to be taken by a popular ex-governor, Senator Rutherford. I mean, I don't know.
Corker is no loss. Corker is a rhino at best. He's been a staunch opponent of President Trump. Corker is an asswipe, and I'm glad to see him go.
Genuine, but at least according to the polls at this precise moment, if you, and it often isn't except in the district that is completely correct. So many people, you know, if the polls that care about the poor, they care about the country, who are these guys? Anyway, right off the bat with that, the other thing is, I think we look
The secret weapon that the Republicans enjoy, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Maxine Waters, Ocasio, all secret weapons for the Republicans. We'll be back.
have you gone into a health food store and confused as to the many different brands and prices of the same? Want to buy the cheapest, quality is best, so you buy the most expensive. Truth is, the cheapest may be better. Green herb herbal supplements are all manufactured in our Wheat Ridge, Colorado plant at 4565 Tiffany Street, using the highest quality herbs that we source from all over the world. Our 150 different herbal supplements are the most potent and safest in America. Our guarantee is your money back, no time limit. Just return the bottle empty or full, no questions asked. So when you come to our new location, look for our new name, New Gifted Health, or call us at 888-765-HERB. That's 888-765-4372.
Ladies, this is Daisy Golden informing you that heart attack is different than heart attack in men. Women having heart attacks will experience nausea, vomiting, indigestion, shortness of breath, simply extreme fatigue, but still with chest pain. Get emergency medical help. Call 911 if you're experiencing any of these symptoms. Pain, pressure, burning, or twisting the chest, jaw, shoulders, back, or arms that last more than 5 to 10 minutes. Unexplained shortness of breath lasting more than 5 to 10 minutes. Severe amounts of vomiting, indigestion, sweating for no reason. Sudden unexplained extreme fatigue, loss of consciousness or fainting, or sudden unexplained panicky feeling of doom. The key is to listen to your body. Follow your instincts, and if you experience symptoms that are disturbing you in any way, or even remotely related to your heart, get yourself checked out right away. If your doctor questions you off, that's a sign you need to see a doctor. One will actually do what is necessary to get the phone of your symptoms.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessing of liberty for ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution. American Window Tinting Incorporated is right now reminds parents, keep an eye on your child while children tend to stray or become lost. This poses an opportunity for a would-be abductor. Please make every effort to keep track of your little ones at all times. If you have information regarding a lost child, call local authorities at once. This message is from American Window Tinting Incorporated right now. For residential or commercial window tinting, call 303-263-4228.
My friends, I don't usually play music, but this next video will be music to my ears, and I'm sure yours. It's Judge Jeanine Pirro ripping the left a new one. Listen.
The left doesn't care about our economic success. All they want to do is make noise. They want to talk about whores and porn stars, or about a lawyer who they're squeezing so tight he'll confess to sinking the Titanic. The truth? Nobody's paying attention to them. You know, Americans elected the outsider businessman president. Why? To borrow a phrase from the man himself, what do we have to lose? The economy was in the tank. Our kids were living in the basement because they couldn't find a job. Factories were closing down. Jobs in manufacturing were being shipped overseas. And in trade, China was sucking us dry. The Obama folks called it a healthy economy, but there was barely a pulse. 1% annual GDP growth was the new normal for these bozos. And President Obama even warned that Donald Trump's election would result in economic disaster for all Americans.
Because some of those jobs of the past are just not going to come back. And when somebody says, like the person you just mentioned, who I'm not going to advertise for, that he's going to bring all these jobs back. Well, how exactly are you going to do that? What do you...
Well, excuse me, schmuck. I think for one of the few instances Obama's telling the truth. He truly does not know how to bring jobs back. Just a little asterisk at the end. Donald Trump has thus far, in less than 2 years, brought 3.7 million jobs back to America, while Barack Obama's been going on an endless vacation. Well, Barack, that's a good question. Here's my recommendation. Shut your mouth, watch, listen, and learn. You know, the primitive savages would look at someone from Europe a century ago using modern technology and think it was magic because the savages knew nothing. Well, Barack Obama and the Democrats know nothing. So when Donald Trump comes and uses time-honored business principles to generate over 3 million, nearly 4 million jobs and supercharge our economy, well, they're so simple and ignorant that to them it seems like magic.
And I want you to tell your friends.
This is Hillary.
Don't let a friend vote Trump.
No, instead, let's vote for the scummiest, most dishonest politician probably in the history of this nation. My friends, the arrogance is just drooling out of her mouth. She's so arrogant because she knows she's going to win. Wrong. That's right. Of course, my friends, you see how the economy in the United States has been utterly demolished by Donald Trump. And if you don't think that's true, just ask Hillary. You know, I'm going to post this on my Facebook page. I want you to look at it. I want you to share it because she's hanging herself with her own words. With her own words, she's making it clear that she is a gaping rectum who doesn't know up from down and would have been an Ebola-like disaster for this country.
It's the Great Recession.
Keep talking, Hillary. Now, that last jackass was Mark Cuban, who owns a basketball team, and so he thinks he's smart enough to be president. I think maybe he's smart enough barely to own a basketball team. Now here is Mitt Romney. Listen to this genius.
Tax plan, in combination with his refusal to reform entitlements and to honestly address spending, would balloon the deficit and the national debt. So even though Donald Trump has offered very few specific economic plans, what little he has said is enough to know that he would be very bad for American workers and for American families.
Of course, Trump's been terrible for American workers. Of course, there are 3.7 million more American workers now, thanks to Donald Trump, and the economy is taking off like a rocket, as opposed to the pathetic Mitt Romney, who couldn't even beat an even more pathetic Barack Obama in the race for president.
And then there was Paul Krugman, a Nobel Prize-winning economist, writing for the New York Times. Let me say that again. He's a Nobel Prize-winning economist. Who said, "The stock market will plummet and never recover from the election of Donald Trump. So we are very probably looking at a global recession with no end."
Now that is a Nobel Prize-winning economist saying if Donald Trump became president, the economy would crash and burn. So tell me a little bit about who's handing out Nobel Prizes. What's their requirement? That the person show up and have a tuxedo? Krugman again and again and again and again, just like Hillary, opens his mouth or types on his computer and proves that he is a rectum. He knows nothing, but he is a left ideologue.
You know, some are so grounded by their hatred of Donald Trump, but they forget decades of training.
Judge, let me correct you if I may. It's not their hatred of Donald Trump. Yes, he's the immediate target of their hatred. It's their hatred of the average American. That's what blinds them. It says in the Talmud, hatred blinds a man. So all these people on the left, yeah, maybe they've got some IQ points, but it doesn't help them because they're so filled with hate and rage at you and me that they run off saying absolutely profoundly stupid things and damaging this country in the process.
And as America surges forward with more jobs and people in the system, with African American and Hispanic unemployment the lowest in history, with millions of jobs left here,
Now, my friends, I asked the left for a comment. I presented the figures, the economic figures, the employment figures that the Trump administration has put out. And here's the left comment, and I'll quote directly. Racist, 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 racist. I want you to know that comes from a Nobel Prize-winning economist. We'll be back.
Celebrating decades of dedication and reach, motive, and community. Call for 5-2-13-6-6 for the dedicated parents. The mind of children are our future, and the future worth protecting. The Patriot Trading Group is a different kind of gold and silver company, cleaning up the industry for 21 years. Are you tired of the high-pressure sales tactics, the constant phone calls? Are you done with the bait and switch? You just want to be treated fairly with honesty and respect? That's exactly what you get when you call 800-951-0592. You have my word on it. I'm Joe Jacobs, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group. Check us out online at allamericangold.com. Howdy, folks. Have you ever thought about having your own backyard chickens? Now you have a source for certified organic, no GMO, no soy chicken feed. HappyHens.biz can even deliver, or you can pick up. Call me, Tim, at 303-829-5948, or go to happyhens.biz for pricing and ingredients. At happyhens.biz, we love happyhens.biz, or call us at 303-829-5948. The American Freedom Network is not funded or supported by special interest groups or government programs. The American Freedom Network is not sponsored by advertisers demanding content or programming control. The American Freedom Network is totally funded by you, the listeners. Please help keep the American Freedom Network on the air by purchasing one of our sponsored fine products or by calling 1-800-205-6245 to make a donation. The American Freedom Network needs your help.
All right, guys, welcome back to Real Truth. I am Howard Riell, and this is Glenn Beck talking about what the recent released FISA documents really reveal. Not about Russian collusion, but about the swamp. Here's Glenn Beck.
Memo appears to be almost entirely correct. And the Republican memo appears to be almost entirely correct. And the Democrats' responding memo looks to be like an attempt to cover up the truth. First and foremost, I had an issue with the way this was written right from page 2. Carter Page here is presented to the FISA court by the FBI and DOJ not as a suspected agent of a foreign power, but as a full agent of a foreign power. Now keep in mind, this isn't a court trying to establish guilt. This is a court that is trying to grant surveillance power on someone who is suspected of being guilty. If they were already sure of his guilt, why did they have to have the surveillance? Doesn't evidence come before guilt? This is a point that I don't see anyone in the media making today. This is how the FISA court should operate, where the government can declare you guilty. They can declare you guilty without a trial. And then they can say, we need to snoop around and look at his stuff. They can use this to restrict your constitutional rights. Is that what's going on? Because if it is, we should all be in an uproar over this. That, by the way, is just on page 2. You move on. Page 13, 14, and 22 seem to be what the Democratic memo was referencing when they stated that the dossier wasn't the sole source of information used to grant the FISA warrant. The heavily redacted information on pages 13, 14 reference the FBI case I was talking about earlier, where the FBI cleared Page of any wrongdoing after the Russians tried to use him as an asset. So if he was already declared innocent back in 2015, why is he now a declared agent and they're using the same information to prove his guilt? It doesn't make any sense. Page 22. This one references a Yahoo News article that stated that Page met with Russian government officials when he was giving his speech in Russia at the New Economic School. Wait a minute. Who was the source on that? We were talking about this just a couple of minutes ago. The information came from the Steele dossier. So the FBI was citing a Yahoo News article that they were claiming backed up the information in the dossier. But the information Yahoo News reported on and the information the FBI was basing this entire FISA warrant on was the same person, Christopher Steele. This is what we feared when we first saw this. Now we have evidence that it is true. The man working on the opposition research bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton and the DNC. But, as the Republican memo stated, was this information disclosed in the FISA application? Well, this one really is important, because if they didn't say that, hey, this document came from Donald Trump's competitor, Hillary Clinton, that seems to be some pretty important information. Democrats say they did. I'll let you be the judge. This is what it says in a footnote at the end of page 15. Source number 1, that's Christopher Steele, who now owns a foreign business financial intelligence firm, was approached by an identified U.S. person, that would be Fusion GPS, who indicated that source number 1, Steele, that a U.S.-based law firm had hired an identified U.S. person to conduct research regarding candidate 1's, that's Donald Trump, ties to Russia. The FBI speculates that the identified U.S. person was likely looking for information that could be used to discredit candidate number 1's campaign. Did you notice here? You didn't see opposition research. That's important. They say they speculate that this information could be used to discredit Donald Trump. But that's really odd language, considering they knew that Fusion GPS was on an opposition research team that had been hired by the DNC and Clinton to make Trump look bad. Now, if they were being absolutely forthright and truthful, it would have read something like this. Candidate number 2, Hillary, and political party number 2, DNC, hired U.S. person number 1, Fusion GPS, who then hired source number 1, Steele, to do opposition research on candidate number 2's rival in the election. Read it like that, and you're good. Read it the other way, and tell me the FBI wasn't trying to be deceptive. There's no other way to put it. Outright omitting the facts and using language that is soft to hide other facts is deception. The Steele dossier was the primary source for the FISA warrant, and the people that commissioned it were purposely concealing that from the court.
And by the way, my friends, they were all Democrats.
The FBI and the DOJ look horrible here. And if they were doing this over political bias, they look even worse. But the FISA court, something has to be done about this FISA court. It's out of control and a sham of a system. How many more cases like this one have to be passed? How many more Americans are being surveilled right now on trumped-up charges like the ones on Carter Page? It's unconstitutional. The relationship between the FBI, DOJ, and the FISA court needs an immediate audit. Every major news outlet, politician, and citizen should be demanding that.
But you know they won't, because the politicians are part of the swamp, and they count on this FISA court to help do its dirty work. You know, thank God we elected a president who not only promised to drain the swamp, but actually is draining it. That's why the swamp is getting so fierce, because they can sense their imminent extinction. And by the way, if Shrillery had become president, we never would have learned about this. It would have continued. It would have gone into the future. And anything resembling the freedoms that we expect in America would have been gone for good. Let's take a break and we'll come back and finish up right here on Real Truth.
Ladies and gentlemen, the conflict under the green earth. Well, it had to happen. Colorado legalized marijuana. Most people thought the green earth was a marijuana dispensary. Although it was legalized on January the 1st, 2014. The same day we opened our new location at 4565 Kiffin Street, 1.5 blocks south of I-70. There are 83,000 cars a day nesting in front of our new location at Kiffin Street, and most of them thought we were a marijuana dispensary. So we changed the name of our retail store to New Genesis Health, but kept the name of our green herb supplement. So if you come to our new location, look for our new name, New Genesis Health, or call us at 888-765-HERB. That's 888-765-4372. And be sure to listen to the Healthy Nature Show with Mr. Phillips every Tuesday at 1 p.m.
ELR is the mobile computer under your life exception. Something the life of ever gets to be born. Baby and mother both lose with one and drink to divorce. Former abortion doctor Nathan said people do not understand that there are thousands of serious physical complications of abortion every year at this time. Depression, stress, anxiety disorder, sleep disturbance, suicide, violent behavior, stability, risk of miscarriage, and delivery complications. International Journal of Epidemiology reported abortion increases breast cancer risk by 90%. Every helpless baby has the right to life, too. This life-giving message is brought to you by TLR Associates of Boulder, providing a job well done for your home or business. Stucco, stone, and brick. Call TLR Associates of Boulder, 303-921-3310. TLR Medallion brand and stucco protects the Boulder and northern Colorado area. Check.
Item from ABC News: Senator Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan would increase government health care spending by $32.6 trillion over 10 years, according to a study by university-based Libertarian Policy Center. That's trillion with a T, unquote. So Bernie wants Medicare for all. Everybody gets free health care. Of course, it'll cost at least $32.6 trillion over a decade. What do they say? The problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money. I think the problem with socialism is its complete detachment from reality. Item from the Mirror over in the UK. 1 in 5 young adults, age 18 to 24, does not know what an STI is, or an STD, according to a new survey. 36% said they've never been tested for an STD. 20% admit they don't really understand what an STD is, unquote. And so, you've got young people going out having sex with anything that'll hold still long enough. And if you say to them, well, hang on a second, you don't want to catch a sexually transmitted disease, they say, huh? What's that? Whatever happened to sex ed? When I was a kid, everybody made a big stink. Now they're teaching sex ed in school. Where'd that go? I mean, I know government schools are pathetic, but at least kids should know what's happening in their own crotches. No? Item from Breitbart. Imam Mundir Abdallah of the Masjid al-Farouk Mosque in Copenhagen told his followers, quote, the final solution to the problem of the Levant after the establishment of the Caliphate and the elimination of the Jewish entity will be through the conquest of Europe, unquote. Abdallah was speaking on video first, released in 2017. It's now been made public and translated by the Middle East Media Research Institute. Just a week after he was charged with hate speech over a separate incident where he repeated a call to kill Jews. In the latest video, Abdallah lays out a plan whereby Muslims can conquer all of Europe and deliver a final blow to the, quote, vileness of the Jewish people. Item from Breitbart. New York Times bestselling author and populist conservative columnist Ann Coulter says President Trump's poll numbers will go through the roof if he would simply build the border wall he promised to construct along the U.S.-Mexico border. Unquote. My friends, Donald Trump has said he will shut down the federal government if he doesn't get money for the wall, and I have to say I am proud of him for doing it. Shutting down the government can only be a good thing. It can't be a bad thing. When he passed that monstrous omnibus budget many months ago, he said he hated to do it, he would never do it again, and this is another promise that he's keeping. He won't do it again. He will bring the entire edifice to a standstill rather than let Americans continue to be victimized by all the garbage coming over from the third world over our southern border. Trump wants people to be safe. And if Democrats want to run against that, I invite them to. There will be no blue wave. There will be a red wave. And you'll begin to see that when a candidate comes along, he keeps his promises and makes sense, the American people will respond. We need the wall. We need it yesterday. Actually, we need it 50 years ago. We need it 100 years ago, but we need a wall. And I'd much rather have a fight over the wall and no government than a big, fat, bloated government that doesn't care about protecting its own people. I'll see you tomorrow with more Real Truth. Hasta luego.